بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to continue in our reading on page 85. We have two more biographies in the house of Aydurus, and then we're going to start reading in the summary of Al-Ihya, which would allow us to start at our level to implement the practices of the house of Al-Aydurus, mashallah, which was an attachment, a strong attachment to the Ihya of Imam al-Ghazali. MashaAllah. So let us begin on page 85. Bismillah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The author, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, Sheikh Abdullah ibn Sheikh al-Aydarus, rahimahullah. Sheikh Abdullah was the grandson of the elder Aydarus and was born in the Damoon Valley in 887 AH, 1482 CE. He was raised by his father, then his uncle Sheikh Ali. When he reached 14 years of age, his uncle Abu Bakr al-Adani, rahimahullah, requested him to join him in Aden so that he could be taught under his supervision. He studied there for...
Sheikh Abu Bakr al-Adani is the son of Al-Aydurus al-Akbar, and he was the one who was given the leadership after him.
He studied there for a while, then returned to Turin for about 5 years, where he studied under his father and other uncle. Then, when ripe enough, returned to Aden to be invested with the Kirqa by his uncle, Al-Adani, given the oath of allegiance, granted the authorization, and infused with the spiritual secrets of the heart. He only returned to Turin after his illustrious uncle's death, and then used to say, My master and Sheikh Abu Bakr does not absent himself from me for a single moment.
And here, this is many secrets in that statement. My master and Sheikh Abu Bakr does not absent himself from me for a single moment. That is a connection that happened in the world and in the intermediate world. And as I mentioned to you before, that's very important to have these connections. And the key ingredient to these connections is extreme love of the pious. And by that love, you will be connected to them. And with that connection, there's traces of it. And that's this companionship. May Allah grant us it.
He became one of the most prominent Alawi masters, teaching, disciplining, setting a good example, offering hospitality to guests, travelers, and the needy, and showing supernatural events every now and then, until his death in 944 AH, 1538 CE.
Now,
Habib Abdurrahman ibn Mustafa al-Aydarus, rahimahullah.
this great scholar is the link by which we find a connection in terms of our chains of narration with the Shehu Uthman Dan Fodio, because his student was the Sheikh of Uthman Dan Fodio. So we're going to talk about it. So Sheikh Abdurrahman bin Mustafa Al Aidarus was the student of Imam Al Haddad, and his student, Sheikh Muhammad Murtada Zabidi, was the Sheikh of Uthman Danfurio. So that meeting in Egypt and through these chains of narrations connect.
Born in Turim on the 9th of Safar 1136 AH, 8th of November 1723 CE, he was educated by his father and grandfather, together with Habib Abdurrahman ibn Abdullah al-Balfaqi.
Who is known as the scholar of the world. That's what Imam al-Haddad called him, the scholar of the world. And he mentioned that there is no one on the earth like Abdurrahman in praising him. And the last camp, we did a book by him, the last Darul Rahman camp. Mashallah, not the one we just finished, the one before that.
Imam al-Haddad's disciple. Soon he became a well-established scholar. Then he started traveling and never stopped. He journeyed to India, the Yemen, the Hijaz, Egypt, Jerusalem, and the rest of Palestine, Syria, Turkey, and Greece. He returned to Hadramaut only once.
Remember, in this is where the chains of narration from Asada and those routes are being connected.
He returned to Hadramaut only once in 1155 AH, 1742 CE, on his return from his trip to India. When he went to Egypt, he traveled south down the Nile Valley 6 times and north up to Damietta 8 times. Footnote number 5, seaport in Egypt as at the mouth of the eastern branch of the Nile. Wherever he went, he was warmly welcomed by scholars, students, poets, and laymen alike. On his third trip to Egypt, he settled down in Cairo, remaining there until the end of his life. The famous historian Al-Jabarti, rahimahullah, says of him, in Egypt he became the supreme man of his time, both as concerns his spiritual state and his teaching. The scholars of Cairo came to learn from him. During his sojourn in Cairo, he authored treatises on the Qadri and Naqshbani tariqas and a commentary on Sayyid Ahmed al-Badawi's and invocations of prayers on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So you'll notice that even though he was Ba'alawi, he was familiar with the other Turuq Sufiya, and he would take them for the barakah and transmit knowledge from the great scholars of other tariqas too. So it wasn't the habit just my tariqah. Look, wherever there were virtuous people and pious people and there was benefit, they benefited from them.
Among his more famous students were the great Sulayman ibn Yahya al-Ahdal, rahimahullah,
Who was a great Yemeni scholar of hadith.
and his son Abdul Rahman ibn Sulayman and Sayyid Muhammad Murtada al-Zabidi, the commentary on al-Ghazali's Ihya al-Ulumuddin.
And Muhammad Murtada al-Zabidi was known to say, there is no scholar or book in Islam except that I have a continuous chain to it. So he was among the last great hufad of this nation. And the famous and most relied upon commentary of the Ihya of Imam al-Ghazali is his book, Ithaf al-Sadat al-Muttaqeen. And inshallah, we will be starting next week uh, adding to our reading the Ihya or parts of the Ihya through the summary of the Ihya to get us in the habit of having a connection to the Ihya of Imam al-Ghazali. And we will be mentioning some things from which Muhammad Murtada az-Zabidi mentioned in his commentary. Now,
The following is an example of his spiritual writings. Know that the invocation La ilaha illallah brings on the unveilings of the heart. Allah, Allah brings on the unveilings of the spirit. Who brings on the unveilings of the secrets? La ilaha illallah is the magnet of hearts. Allah is the magnet of spirits. Hu is the magnet of secrets.
mm,
The likeness of the heart, the spirit, and the secret is that of a pearl in a shell in a small box. The box.
who here is for Huwa, meaning Allah. Mm,
The box corresponds to the heart, the shell to the spirit, and the pearl to the secret. Or if you wish, you can say that they are like a bird in a cage in a house. The house would then correspond to the heart, the cage to the spirit, and the bird to the secret. If you do not reach the house, you will be unable to reach the cage. And if you do not reach the cage, you will be unable to reach the bird. Similarly, if you do not reach the heart, you will be unable to reach the spirit. And if you do not reach the spirit, you will be unable to reach the secret.
Allahu Akbar. So our
Once
teachers explained it. They said we are a combination of body, of the heart, of the spirit, of the soul, and of the secret. The body, the heart, the spirit, the soul, and the secret. All of that makes up the human being. And the secret is our direct, correct connection to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala without any intermediary. Mm.
Once you reach the house, you would have reached the world of the heart. When you reach the world of the heart, you will have reached the world of the malakut, which is the opposite of the world of the mulk, the visible domain. When you reach the cage, you will have reached the world of the spirit, the world of Jabarut. When you reach the bird, you will have reached the world of the secret, the world of the lahut.
Allahu Akbar.
This example
These are all
implies
Sufi terminology. We'll talk about them later, inshallah. May Allah bless your grandson, Malika, and grant him great health and make him among the awliya of Allah. Now,
This example implies that the circle of the secret is the smallest of all, which it is not, for it is the largest of all. The circle of the spirit is smaller, and that of the heart smaller still. Know that when you become extinct to the visible world, the world of the mulk, and lose awareness of it by your entry into the world of the malakut, the visible world will become visible to you, while the invisible world, that of the malakut, will become visible. You will see it with your inward you will see it with your inward eye, for the world of the mulk is that which is seen with the outward eye, whereas that of the malakut is that which is seen with the inward eye. This, according to them, the Sufis, is the first extinction, fana. The traveler should continue his
here,
incessant.
these are experienced matters, not matters you intellectualize. The terminology to give you the idea, but this is something that needs to be experienced. And we leave it to its people. Mm.
The traveler should continue his incessant effort until he crosses this world, for it is a veil. Just as halting with the world of the mulk is a veil, so is halting with the world of the malakut. However, the first is a dark veil, whereas the second is a luminous one. This is the point at which the traveler needs a master most, for at the appearance of the second veil, he may think he has reached his goal and contentedly stop there. It will thus be a veil for him, and he will be cut off.
Mm.
Once he passes the world of the Malakut, he will enter the world of the Jabarut, which is invisible in relation to the Malakut. The Malakut will then become invisible with the Jabarut. Excuse me. The Malakut will then become invisible and the Jabarut visible to him. This is the beginning of the second extinction. He will then continue his traveling in his effort until he enters the presence of the Lahut. This is complete extinction. It is termed Fana el Fana, extinction of the extinction. He will thus have become extinct to creation as well as to his own extinction. This is the ultimate extinction of the path of the traveler, pure extinction. From there, he will return to the world of subsistence, which is called the second separation, awakening after erasure, rendering of union, and separation after union. For here, multiplicity will appear in unity and be perceived in it. It is also called the erasure of erasure, the extinction of extinction, which is none other than subsistence, the union of union, and the contemplation of unity in multiplicity and multiplicity in unity. He will then see separation in the essence of union, so that neither of them will be a veil over the other. The man in this station is not veiled from creation by the real, or by the real from creation. Rather, he sees the real in creation and creation in the real. He thus gives each its due.
And here we should be extremely clear when you read this. Many people, when they hear this type of speech, they can easily fall into bad beliefs like divine indwelling or divine union, as they call it, in believing that the Creator indwells in the creation and they become one. This is kufr. So this is not what is entailed there. So the concept of al-hulul, that Allah indwells in human beings, is kufr, not intended. Or that the human would unite with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they become one. Man is God and God is man. This is kufr. And it's not what is intended here. Rather, what is intended is that one becomes lost or annihilated in the divine reality and realize that everything proceeds as a creation is subjugated by Allah Ta'ala, and in and of itself, it has no real ability. An easy way so that you don't fall into the... Now, the experience of that reality is another level, which we leave to its people. But the creed of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah and the Sufis is that the creation never becomes the creator, and the creator never becomes the part of creation. So even the expressions, if one understood from that, such ideas, no, your understanding is faulty and you misunderstand. And you should leave it to its people. Is this clear? Is this point clear? So don't go any further than that. And don't try to explain. You have to experience. Yes, to that question. That's a good question. And partly of it are these terminologies and misunderstanding of them what has caused the term goofy Sufi? Yes, because when one does not understand the sacred law, when one is uh, experiencing unseen realities and don't know how to join that with the sacred law, or even hearing about it or reading about it, one will go astray. That's the dangerous thing. So that's why we emphasize all the time learning the sacred law, having the sound belief, learning the proper limits of the sacred law, and not going beyond that. And also, all of us knowing our limits, right? Knowing our limits. Knowing your limits is to realize there are people of realization even if you are not among them, right? There are people of realization even if you're not among them. So we don't deny the experience of people experience, but we don't claim them either, nor to necessarily understand them if we didn't experience them. Y'all follow? But we do have conviction in the truthfulness of their states, as have been reported to us generation to generation and experienced by knowers of Allah in every generation at every time throughout this nation. That's the best we can say about that. And in our language, don't try this at home. Right? Don't try this at home. Go ahead.
As for he who sees only the outwardly manifest, he is extinct in it to the manifester and thus does not see him. He is a traveler from creation to the real. This degree is termed wilaya. He who sees only he who manifests, he is extinct to the outwardly manifest and is in the first separation.
Mhm.
He who sees them both.
These translations are al-fana and al-baqa, al-farq and al-jama'. All these are Sufi terminology, and the people of that science, they have their experience in those terms are trying to identify an experience. So it's for them, not for us. But we benefit of knowing there are levels to this. And we strive from our uh, point to hopefully one day among us are those who experience. Now,
He who sees them both is he who is neither veiled by the real from creation, nor from the real by creation. He is the one who has returned from the real to creation, even while subsisting in the real. This degree is termed prophethood for prophets and subsistence and perfection for saints. The possessor of this degree receives
saints mean awliya. So you have al-anbiya, and then you have the awliya, who are under the status of the prophets. Now,
the possessor of this degree receives wadidat from all stations, his visions from all presences, and witnesses the manifestation of all the names. Sometimes he speaks with the tongue of reality, being totally absorbed, and sometimes he speaks with the tongue of the second awakening, either entirely so or mixed with some degree of intoxication. This
intoxication doesn't mean drunk. It's spiritually, it's a spiritual state where one is unaware of one's surroundings, if we can say, in the physical realm.
This second one is he who is capable of guiding others, for this station is that of guiding disciples and disciplining travelers. This station for saints is similar to that of divine messenger for prophets. May blessings and peace be upon them all. For it is the station of calling created beings to Allah Ta'ala by Allah Ta'ala. It is that station which is alluded to in his saying, May Allah Ta'ala's blessings and peace be upon him. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Scholars are heirs to the prophets, and the scholars of my community are the prophets of the Israelites. This second hadith, although criticized by esoteric scholars,
of Bani Israel.
This second hadith, although criticized by esoteric scholars, is widely quoted by them through unveiling as the hadith I was a hidden treasure was authenticated through unveiling by Sheikh Akbar,
You skip the whole
rahimahullah.
line.
Excuse me.
Bring
I'll
it.
start over.
Yeah.
This second hadith, although criticized by scholars, is widely quoted by esoteric scholars, and these are an adequate precedent for us. It may have been authenticated by them through unveiling, as the hadith I was a hidden treasure was authenticated through unveiling by Sheikh al Akbar. May Allah Ta'ala sanctify his secret in Al Futuhat al Makkiyah. He
So
died.
here he's given a deep indication. There is the physical way of verifying things, and then there is the way of spiritual unveiling to see realities of things. What we rely upon as our practice is the outward way of verifying reports. But that doesn't deny the validity of reports that one experiences by spiritual unveiling. But we don't apply that as a rule. Did y'all follow that? So, in other words, someone's spiritual states don't become evidences in the sacred law. But them spiritual states are not to be denied just on the apparent aspects of outward investigation and authentication. If that's right. Mm. Let me say it another way, because that didn't make sense to me. It made sense, but I don't know if it came out clear. When you have a report, the scholars of hadith, for instance, have rules by which they weigh the validity and authenticity of a report. Those are the outward ways to do it: chain of narration, the men of the narrators, their uprightness. But that doesn't necessitate the truthfulness of a report that doesn't meet those conditions. Does that make more sense? Let me see. That was harder for you. So you lay down conditions by which we know a hadith is accepted, a narration is accepted. So that's from our outward aspect. That alone does not dictate that whatever does not meet the conditions of those scholars for the authenticity of a report mean in actuality that the report is not authentic. Now that makes sense? Walaikum salam. Did you follow, Levon? Does that make sense now? Okay. So some of them, the knowers of Allah, they don't rely solely on the outward way of verifying a report. They sometimes, oftentimes, receive their understanding of a report from their own direct unveiling and experience. Such was the case of Imam Haddad. I ain't trying to go far and deep off this. I don't want to lose you, right? In this sense. But it's a point to be understood. Because what happens if we don't understand this, we just deny everything that's not in the hadith report. Where's your dalil? And that's wrong. So remember, I told you, one of the knowers of Allah, someone came and asked him for an evidence. He said, I am your dalil. Allahu Akbar. Said, what's the proof? He said, I am your proof. Wow, that was heavy. Let's take that as an example, just not going deep into this, right? For instance, seeing the prophet in a dream or awakened state, right? As an example, someone can experience that. That doesn't mean we have to accept his experience. But our not accepting his experience don't mean he didn't experience that. Do you follow now? It is possible that they experienced that. But we don't have to believe that experience. But our lack of belief in that experience doesn't mean that experience is not true. So that's for that person. That's their own experience, their own understanding, right? So that person can't say, I saw the prophet in a dream and that hadith is authentic. He told me it. That may be true for you, but we're going to go by the rules of hadith. And that report is not well authenticated. But for that person, he doesn't care about the rules, in this case, from his own experience. In his own experience. Now that makes sense? Hence, that's where you're going to find in the Ihya, for instance, reports and other books that might not meet the grading of the hadith scholars, but they're on a whole nother level with it. They're not worrying about the hadith scholars because of their own experience that the hadith scholars don't have. That doesn't negate what the hadith scholars' work is. And that experience does not change the ruling of the hadith scholars. But for those people of that experience overweighs what the hadith scholars say. For them. And there's no contradiction between the two. There's no contradiction between the two. None whatsoever. because they're not making legal rulings. They're not using these states and experience to change the sacred law. The sacred law is the sacred law. So even if they have these experiences, that's their experience. For us, I'll say this, right? We have been left with a false we are put with a false dilemma. Let me share that dilemma quickly. Let's finish this out real quick before I go there.
He died in Cairo in 1192 AH, 1778 CE. The funeral prayer was held at the Al Azhar Mosque, and he was buried in the mosque of Sayyidah Zainab, radiallahu anha, may Allah Ta'ala be pleased with her, the Prophet's granddaughter.
So, give you an example. So, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. How do I say this? We've been given a false dilemma here. Either I'm keen to the outward aspects of the religion, and based on them, I would deny any spiritual matters, right? Because I don't know anything about them and they're not physically manifest. So my whole scale is just outward knowledge. That's a problem because there are other matters that are real that are not perceived just solely through the outward manifestations of religious practice and knowledge. The other side is to say there's some spiritual unseen realization that negates compliance to the outward sacred law, which is false. That is the joining between two realities. And that only comes with knowledge accompanied by experience. Just knowledge about experiences is not enough. Experience and knowledge together is what is needed. Now you understand? So you can't go to either extreme. And for us, why is this important? And I'm not saying I'm the best, probably the worst to explain it because I don't have any experience, right? But I know that it's real from experience of being around people of experience and knowing that these experiences are part of our religious tradition. So we have to join between the two. And all of our great scholars who were scholars of the outward, they also knew this, and many of them experienced it. Other than that, you're just going to be a complete denier if you don't understand the what's the word I want for this? The harmony between these two realities. You'll just write everything off as, oh, that's bid'ah, the shirk, that's against the sharia, and have no reality whatsoever. You be dry. And when things are too dry, what do? They crumble and fall apart. That spiritual realization is the moisture in the sacred law. But it also has limits and rules. So we don't make claims, and those rules protect from false claimants, right? I hope this is extremely clear to the best of my ability. Because if we don't understand these things, we're just going to be left out. If we don't have some familiarity with our real tradition, it's going to be, it's not working for us. Ignorance doesn't help us. Just going like this doesn't work. Has never worked. Step by step. I heard something the other day. It was so powerful to me. And this, it relates to what we're talking about. Now, let me think of the wording. Whoever surrenders themselves to other than themselves is surrendering themselves to subjugation. Man, that was powerful. Whoever resembles themselves to other than themselves is surrendering themselves to subjugation. In other words, if you don't learn and someone else is always dictating to you, you're going to be subjugated by them. And that's a reality. It's deep. We've seen that reality. Subjugation, Fatima. Subjugation. Man, that's heavy. And it has many layers of meaning. So, everyone, let me give you the practical aspect of that in relation to us. There's nowhere in the world where people don't know about tasawwuf in the Islamic lands. And all of these terminology we talking about are common among the people of knowledge in every land. Common. No matter where you go, where there are Muslim learned people, this is the norm. This kind of conversation, this knowledge is available to its people. Of course, I said learned people, right? But in our environments, it's like taboo, like it's Buddhism or something, or Hinduism. It's insane. But that's because we have no exposure. And then someone has made us think that the religion is only confined to the outward physical documentation, which is not reality at all. But that physical outward documentation is the scale when we understand it to weigh other things. But we have to understand it fully first. Other than that, everyone else is going to advance while we stay in the first grade. And then people would advance, and we're in the first grade, and they'll come and make us their workers because they have a knowledge that we don't know. And that's true. They never taught us. So you always at a disadvantage. Like I give you an example. Excuse me. They say Sunni Sufi. What the heck is that? We Sunnis, Sufi, or Shia. What's that? There's no such thing. You can't be a Sunni without being Sufi. There's no such thing. Part of being a Sunni is Sufi. What are you talking about? The Sufis and the Sunnis. Doesn't make sense. That's stupid. And when I say that, not to put anyone down, it doesn't make any sense. Part of being a Sunni is the aspect of Sufism. Our creed, our practice, and our spirituality. Aqidah, fiqh, tasawwuf. That's what is understood from the hadith of Jibril. These are technical terms for that which is mentioned in that hadith. It's part and parcel of being Sunni. You have to have spirituality. You can't just be outward. You have to have spirituality. It's a part of our Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah methodology. It's not something separate. And there is no Sufism without the sacred law. So therefore, you cannot be just a Sufi and avoid following the sacred law. You're not a Sufi, you're an innovator or a blasphemer. Like this. Do you understand? Is that more clear? But in our thing, oh, they Sufis. What is the Sufi that you claim to be? That's why every great scholar was a Sufi. They don't tell you that part. So the one who says, I'm against Sufism is reading the books of An-Nawawi, reading the book of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, reading the books of Ibn Kathir, reading the books of Al-Qutubi, all who were Sufis. But they don't tell you that. Ain't that deep? That's how much they lied to us, right? They never mentioned that. They were all Sufis. Every single one of them. But they won't tell you that. You would think they were people who denied all of these matters. And they lived these matters, experienced their matters, their teachers, their students, all of they were in these ways, every single one of them. But no one is telling us as a norm. And we're just talking about just the facts, not making claims. That's just the facts. That's real. That's true. So for us, when we're reading these things, we're just becoming aware of reality. Even if we didn't experience reality, we're just becoming aware of it. And one day, inshallah, some of us will experience. And it just becomes normal, like it is in other places. So I hope this helped. Inshallah, let me move to it. So we're going to, the book is back in stock. We have it. I delayed until we had enough books. So we're moving. In addition to this, we're going to be reading daily parts of the Ihya. And this is, because the Ihya is huge. So this is one of the best summaries that I've seen. as per the translation and everything, because even the translations of the Ihya in English are horrible, right? Uh, this is one of the best I've seen, and I've read several of them. This is one of the best. It's done well. So we started in this already, but we didn't have enough books, and too many people was coming, and so I stopped. Now I have enough for everyone. So those who didn't get it, uh, it's available because we're going to start on this next week. So probably Monday, we're going to start back. So we'll be reading this in addition to this book in the mornings. Uh, and I'm going to take, inshallah, us through this book in a summarized way so that we can start having our portion of what they talked about, building our knowledge and understanding to make ourselves available to receive. So I advise you to, so you're not sitting around saying, I don't have a book. Uh, so you can follow, get the book. Also, as we always request, there are always people who can't afford it. So those who can afford, you can donate. Uh, you can donate a book here for students who cannot afford it. That way, we help each other. So that's because the book's like $85. Uh, so some people, they can't afford it. So those donations we get in that fund helps everyone who cannot afford, but we have to get the money because we have to pay. It's not free for us, right? So, uh, and the proceeds helps us continue to do the work. Uh, this is a good question. I have the orange one and I have the 4-volume one. Do I need to get this one? You will not follow with the one you have. It will be too much work. Uh, those books are different books anyway. This is a different summary. And this one is much more accurate. You'll see the difference when you read, even in the English, you'll see a vast difference because these are all translations, and the quality of the translation means a lot. You know, they're getting better and better and better, but I stopped reading the orange one because I might as well translate it myself. It's too difficult, too many mistakes. It's better than nothing, but as you get better, you know, uh, yeah, I remember reading that Andre. I was so frustrated because I'm like, man, I have to keep going over and fixing and fixing and fixing and fixing. And the 4 volumes have the same problem, right? And a lot of the problems are terminology because the person doesn't understand the terminology. They literally translate and it changes the whole meaning sometimes. Translation is not easy, right? But you know, everyone, $228 on Amazon. Yeah, because the book's hard to find, but we have it. So for its normal price, which is like $85, right? That's the price that the publisher put out. But when something can't find, everybody raised the price. You know how that go. That's why we couldn't do it. But now we have enough, inshallah, for at least our 3453 family. So that's where we at, inshallah. So please make your orders because I'm going to start again Monday, inshallah ta'ala. Uh, and I'll try to make sure these books get out. Whatever's get out the day it goes out. So you won't have a what? Inshallah ta'ala. May Allah. But this is easy for us because we're actually going through it, right? So you don't just get the book, you get extra things because we're going over it. We're reading it together. We're explaining things. We're clarifying things. We're adding things. It's a big difference from reading on your own. There's no way you would have read this book, Blessed Valley, by yourself and come up with all the stuff you have now. Impossible. Right? You have to have some extra experiences and connections and details. May Allah make it easy. May Allah make it easy. This is difficult work, but needed work. Tayyip, inshallah, we'll see you. What's today? Thursday. Sheikh Yahya Baltimore tonight. Uh, at 7:30. To do what we're doing takes a little courage. Right? It takes a little courage. Everyone does it. They just don't allow us. People are doing the same thing all over the world in their languages, in their cultures, in their communities. It's just us that are being left out. And we have to have the courage uh, to do our part and not fear the blame of a blamer who's not going to help you anyway. He's just going to blame you. Doesn't care if you have it or not, just going to blame you. So don't worry about that. No, Minhaj al-Abidin has not going to follow this book. Minhaj al-Abidin is a total different approach. This is a different approach. So inshallah, you'll follow the classes until you can get it. And inshallah, you'll be all right. Do we have Tariqa is here or main sheikhs who will assist in America? There are tariqas and there are sheikhs. Am I going to recommend anyone to you? No. I recommend you learn. And then once you learn, you can decide that for yourself. But am I going to recommend for anyone a tariqa or a sheikh? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to recommend that you learn, right? And then as you learn and you understand well, you'll decide that. I'm not one to say follow my tariqa or follow my sheikh, because maybe my tariqa and sheikh is not good for you, right? What is good for you to learn. And then when you learn, you can decide that. You may decide, you know what you're doing is exactly what I want to do. Or you say, you know what, this is a better fit for me because I already have a scale to weigh things. Some questions I don't understand. What is the meaning of this question? This is an Imam Naim, one of those moments. What did you just say? Say that again. Maybe I misunderstand your question because that's like Imam Naim's face and look come to my mind when you ask that question. Where's Samira Imam Naim? What do you mean by that question, Isa? I don't understand the question. And maybe you're talking to somebody else or you talking to me. Is that a question for me or someone else? It's a joke. Okay. All right. So my sense of humor, I'm like, what? What? Especially coming from you. Right. Learn and stages, you know, prepare yourself, even if you're going to find what you think is your sheikh, be prepared to at least know what your sheikh is going to talk about. Don't be so ignorant. That's how you get swindled. You didn't learn. You just joined, right? Right? So learn. And Allah will guide you to what you need, but you should learn first. Make sure you take care of that. And what we are trying to do with what we're doing is to make you aware and to kind of help you, guide you along so you can learn how to make right decisions. Look at it this way. You know how you teach your child right and wrong so eventually they can navigate in society? You don't just send your child out in the world, you teach them first. They're not going to learn everything, but they're going to have some foundational knowledge to navigate in the world if you do a good job, right? That's what we're trying to do right at this stage. Make you familiar with reality. So when you're engaging, you have some background to assess, to weigh, to know left from right. That's what we're doing here. Not making any claims, giving you enough that you can navigate the terrain. Y'all follow? Is that point clear? Oh, okay. I got a note. The Maliki Fiqh gathering has been postponed. Our teacher has some things that came up and we couldn't match the dates. So it's postponed till we can match dates in the future. He had to, the date we had, something came up in his personal activities that he couldn't keep that date. And the date he had available, we're not available. So we're going to have to reschedule, inshallah, when the dates can come together. But in the meanwhile, we still didn't review, so we have to review. That gives us more time. You're not trying to be Shafi'i? MashaAllah. Okay. Maliki it is. Tayyib. So yeah, that's it. Is this all what I mentioned clear to everyone? It's very important. I don't want nobody to be confused. So if it's not clear, please let me clarify it. If it's some issue that I talked about that's not clear for you, please tell me. And I'll give you a few minutes before I log off because I don't like for things to be unclear. And I don't want no one putting words in my mouth because they misunderstood what I intended. I want to be very careful with that. Tayyib, barakallahu bikum. May Allah make it easy for you all. We'll see you tonight for those who are available. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.